विग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
Namaste, Sabhaye Namaha, Sabhasadbhyo Namaha. A warm welcome to all our friends who have joined us on the 39th day of this Mahayajna Global Festival of Yoga that started on 21st June, that is International Yoga Day, and it has been continuing up to 31st July 2020. As you all know, Indica Yoga is a platform that offers inclusive and diverse forms of yoga and which believes that no aspect of life can be untouched by yoga, and also which firmly aspires to provide programs, experiences, learnings, and teachings of yoga which is authentic, immersive, and transformative in nature. In this line, we bring to you a very special person today, Professor M.K. Sridhar. I request Professor M.K. Sridhar ji to kindly join us on the screen.
Namaskar.
Namaste, sir. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Professor M.K. Sridhar is a well-known name, yet I'll take a minute to introduce him formally. It's an honor and privilege to present him before you. Professor M.K. Sridhar obtained Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Mysore. He was a senior lecturer in commerce at Vijaya College, Bengaluru, and later served as professor and dean at Canara Bank School of Management Studies of Bangalore University. He has successfully guided many MPhil and many PhD scholars, publishing more than 30 papers and completing 11 research projects. He served as a member secretary of Karnataka Knowledge Commission, of which I had the privilege to work with him. And he was also the member secretary of Karnataka State Innovation Council, Government of Karnataka, and he's also the member of Central Advisory Board of Education. It's one of the highest bodies that set standards for education in India. Recently, he served as the member of the Committee for Draft National Education Policy under the chairmanship of Dr. K. Kasturiran. Again, I had an opportunity to work under his guidance for the national education policy. And it is also interesting to note, last few days we have been thinking about education also. Yoga and education was the topic that we discussed yesterday. And we have none other than Professor Sridhar, who was part of the National Education Policy Drafting Committee. And presently, he is the Executive Council member of Central University of Kerala, Vice President of Indian Red Cross Society, Karnataka chapter, President of Center for Educational and Social Studies, which is a dedicated research center in the areas of education and social studies. And he's also a member of the task force of NEP in Karnataka, as well as the ICSSR Senior Fellow at ISEC, Bengaluru. So these are his credentials, academic credentials, but he also has many other dimensions. And one important dimension of his personality is he's a trainer and a social activist for social and national causes. His life sketch was published as a book entitled Sahasrapadi in Kannada. Sahasrapadi means one with 1,000 feet. He was profiled as an achiever by few newspapers and TV channels. He was conferred with Karnataka Rajyotsava Award. It's one of the highest civilian awards of the Karnataka state. Karnataka Rajyotsava Award by Government of Karnataka and General President Gold Medal by Indian Science Congress Association. So these are some of his, very few of his achievements that I was able to bring before you. But to know that person, you need to listen to him, you need to see him. So with this brief introduction, I request Professor M.K. Sridhar ji to kindly lead this session. Initially, he'll be presenting and then we'll have a conversation based on what he has presented before all of us. I would also like to add one more point. So far, we were having scholars who were experts, scholars, practitioners directly from the yoga field. But if you ask me whether Professor Srinivas or Professor Sridhar belongs to directly yoga field, I would say no, but he has much, much more to offer because his life has been a yoga. The way he is involved in the work when we discuss about karma yoga, which is the topic of today, work as worship, that has been his attitude every moment of his life. So that's why we would like to hear, not from the text, not from what traditions say, but we would definitely like to hear what his experiences has been and what his insights are. So that would be the most valuable thing for us in this whole festival that we have seen. And with these requests, I pass it on to Professor Sridhar, and also request all our participants to kindly enjoy this session. And if you have any questions, kindly key it in the Q&A box. With this, over to Professor Sridhar.
Namaskar. Very nice to meet all of you from different parts of the world. I am unable to see you, but I am able to feel, because seeing is only one form of feeling. So I am able to see all of you in a little different way. And thank you, Vinay, and my friends Anuradha and others for having given me this nice opportunity to interact with all of you. Leave alone all that what Dr. Vinay spoke about me. What I feel is all that whatever has happened in life has happened. Whether it has happened because of you, we don't know. Whether it has happened in spite of you, that we don't know. Whether certain things did not happen because of you, that we don't know. It happened and life goes. And that's how my life also went on. So what I would like to spend for some time looking at the topic that Indic Yoga people have given me, Indica Yoga. Then I asked Dr. Vinay, hey, you have said Karma Yoga and things like that. I am not a great either reader or an expert or somebody who gives discourses in Karma Yoga, Bhagavad Gita and all that. I am not. I read, no doubt, little bit of late. But then what he told me is, no, that is not the reason why we are actually trying to invite you. You please share your own experiences of life. So what I am going to speak today is based on my own experiences in life, my own learnings in life, and of late my own reflections of life. Experiences, learnings, and reflections. When I was a young boy, I was stuck with some kind of handicap and I had to stay in a hostel at a very early age, away from family. Then I picked up, how do you try to stay away from family? And you will have to be a social animal because you do not have the protective gear of a family. You'll have to be a social animal. That's how it started. And it also started, if you have to be a social animal, you'll have to get along with others. That's how we started working as a small team. And when challenges come, there is no point in feeling about the challenges. You'll have to overcome them and go forward. So education continued, all that happened. And one significant thing what I feel is, see, this is important. I'm not trying to put across my biography to all of you. That is not my intention at all. So I started when I became little conscious of things, etc. I started in the group of disabled people, full of disabled people only. And that's how I picked up my early stages of childhood. Then when I came back and, to my own place and started living with my family after a few years, then I started interacting more and more with normal people. So I started off with disabled people. Then I started moving around within normal people. Now, when I started moving with the normal people, then all that survival skills of what I had experienced came very handy to me. Then we started involving ourselves in various things. even in high school elections, union elections and all that. Then I got into contact with various other organizations. I became active, and then at some point of time, little bit of little activism in elections, and then the kind of some political trends that were happening, we fought against it. We underwent imprisonment. Then I continued. I became a teacher. Challenges of being a teacher. Initially, survival as a teacher, and then continuing as a teacher, then growth of a teacher, then contribution. You try to look at a broad spectrum. All that happened. See, what I am trying to say is, when we are saying karma yoga, work as worship, what is that karma and what is that work? See, all of us are aware, birds fly, animals exist, and human beings live. Birds fly, animals exist, human beings live. If human beings live, then you'll have to live your life. I don't know whether there was a life before this life and whether there will be another life after this and after that and after that. I don't know. People say. So when you have to live, you'll have to live your life. Human beings live means live your life. When you have to live, you have, these kind of issues. When you have to live, you'll have to live like, for example, you'll have to work. And when you work, what kind of work that you do? More than that, in our life, there is a work life and there is a non-work life also. Significant portion of our life is work. There is also a portion, there is also a space for life beyond work. So when it is a question of work, what do you mean by that work? Anything that you do. And, for example, when you are a child, when you start going to school, you do all that. We can get a feeling, that when you are as a child, what all the kind of sports that you play, games you play, you don't consider it as work. And when you start doing a lot of things at home, others, you don't consider that as work. When you start getting into college, higher education, then you complete your education. Normally people don't consider that as work. When do you consider something as work? Normally when you join something or you take up something, when you start earning something, you start calling it as work. But according to me, friends, work is not necessarily economic. It is beyond economics. So therefore, once, there is there is understanding what I said, work is purely economic? Not necessary. There is a huge amount of non-economic work. It can be physical, it can be intellectual. So, for example, many of us do a lot of things not for any remuneration, not for any economic return. Then do you call that as work? For example, I remember in my initial days of studying economics, I read and I came across a situation wherein there are all human activities are not economic activities. All human activities are not economic activities. And then I always used to come across an example that used to be given in the textbooks. You know, your own mother, I'm talking more in the Indian context, whoever, in family, when people do a lot of things, you know, they are not doing it for economic purpose. So therefore, all human activity is not necessarily economic activity. And when you start doing all these things, then you go forward and you start working. Then you reach a stage wherein how you work, how much you work, there is a quantitative dimension to that work. For example, some of you may be working in organizations. There are performance indicators. For every week, for every month, for every quarter, there is a performance appraisal. What do you measure? How much you have performed in terms of your work only. And now with this COVID challenge, many of us are working from home. Then how much time you log on is what they ask. And they check you. There are some softwares which check you in a random manner. So what I am trying to say is, work is looked at from different angles. Suppose we imagine, many a time work is looked from physical activity angle, economic angle, intellectual angle, emotional angle. These are all looked at as work. But there is something beyond this also. That is where we come across. So friends, what I feel is, when you are taking things as work can be economic, physical, intellectual, all dimensions. And if you ask me a question, why do you work? Why do you work after all? I work because I get some return. I work because I have energy. I want to make use of the energy that I have. For example, especially in case of children, if children are very mischievous, then people feel bad. And those who are little experienced with children, they always say, they are not mischievous, I say, they are energetic. Because of that energy only, they become active. And you also see a lot of such people. You know, they're always bubbling with enthusiasm. So, energy. Work is also for producing something, as I said, in an organizational context. So therefore, there can be different dimensions why you want to work. And you keep on working, you're working. Your nature of work will change. Your priorities in work change. Your dimensions of work will change. Your expectations from work will change. Your own perceptions about your work keep changing. For example, I join an organization. When I join as an organization, I am like many people. After some years, when I go, I become a team leader. Then my work in that organization has changed. From team leader, I become a middle executive. Then there is a change. From middle executive, I start going upwards. You are not saying that your work has changed. Your role has changed. So therefore, friends, I would like to throw up to you few terminologies connected with work. One is activity. Not necessarily physical activity, any kind of activity. Activity. The other one is the job. Third one is work. And then the role. What work I do becomes less important. What role I play becomes more important. For example, if you take a family, when I am a child, it is the activity which matters. As long as, then you get married. Your activity or work will change or not is a different thing, but your role changes. Then you start growing in age. You become a grandparent. Then your role changes. So friends, please try to understand these intricacies involved in all this. But what is very, very important is, in all this, when I am saying work, it includes all these things put together. Anything that we do is called a work. Now, if you have to say work as worship, whatever work that you do, how do you do it? That is where the worship comes. So, for example, I came across a literary person who wrote a piece some time back. And he said, whatever thing that you do in life, whatever work that you do in life, you must do it with 100% dedication that you have taken birth only to do that work. Suppose I am eating. It is a work. So you must eat in such a way that you have taken birth only to eat. If you are playing, that is a work. You must play in such a way that you have taken birth only to play. If you are writing something, then you'll have to write in such a way with that kind of mindset that you have taken birth only to write. But that is not possible. The point I am trying to say is, whenever we perform any work, how do you perform that work? And that is where the worship comes. So when we say work as worship, there is an element, which says that it is not the work which is very critical. It is no doubt important. But whatever work that you take up, how do you perform it? How do you do it? That is where the worship comes. So when you say worship, let us see, worship is prayer, meditation, yoga, anything. And in fact, this is where karma yoga comes. This is where karma yoga comes. Whatever work that you do, anything that you do in life, don't have a restrictive understanding for the term work. Anything that you do, with what attitude you do, with what value system you do, and with what mindset that you do. And the song says, when we call Bhagavan, he doesn't come. When we ask him to eat something, when we offer him something to eat, he doesn't eat. When we ask Bhagavan to dance, he doesn't dance. And then we sometimes ask him to sleep, take rest, he doesn't. So this is a devotee. And the devotee is trying to say, it is a song on that devotee in the form of a bhajan. The Bhagavan is not coming, is not eating, is not dancing, is not sleeping, because the way you call, the way you make him to eat, the way you make Bhagavan to dance, and the way you make Bhagavan to sleep, because you are not doing in that way, God is not doing all that. There are 4 examples given. Let me not go into those details. Maybe in the course of discussion also we can do that. Because that particular devotee has called Bhagavan in a particular way, Bhagavan has come. Because the particular devotee has offered the food in a particular way, Bhagavan has eaten. There is a reference to each of that devotee. And there is a huge story. I don't want to get into all those details. Maybe when there is time, when you can able to access, you can do that. Shabari, Yashoda, Gopika, all that it is being said. So friends, from this video, what I would like to share with you is the so-called work, whether work is done as worship to God. God is not in your idol. God is not in anything. That higher thing in life. that higher thing. If you are doing that work as worship, that is nothing but karma yoga. Work translation is not karma. Karma is a unique word, and you cannot translate it as work. But that karma yoga is primarily, whatever karma that you perform, with what mind, with what attitude, with what value that you perform just like that, without any expectation, without any attachment, without expecting any return, nothing of that sort. You just like that perform it in the name of that Almighty. That is worship. I don't do calculations for doing my karma. If I do this, will I get that? No, I am not at all looking at anything like that. So friends, I would like to now take a break and ask you to, request you to raise your own questions in the light of what I just shared with you. The life and work, and the work that we perform, and the way you perform the work. And that is where it's linkage to Karma Yoga. Now, the floor is open for you to ask me questions. Even the anchor can put some questions based on what questions you have received. I'll be more than happy to do that. But towards the end, I request the organizers to play this video once again towards the end. Please.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Thank you very much for that candid sharing of your own insights and your reflections that you're having. In fact, there were many gems that you put across through the sharing. One mentioning, just a short while ago, that you don't calculate in getting involved with any work. Or earlier you said work is not related to the economic activity. We are so accustomed, we don't even question these phrases. Like we take it for granted. The moment we say work, okay, that has to be a job, something that one gets paid about. So thank you for bringing those really beautiful insights, sir. So before I open up the floor for questions from our friends, if you permit me, I would like to present a few questions and then open it up.
Please, please, please.
So one issue that most of us come across and we find it hard to deal with is we feel we can be fair and good and noble towards life, provided life is fair and noble towards us. Like I said, most of us feel that, okay, I am good, but only when life is unfair to me, my other dimensions, other side emerges. So that's not actually my problem, but society's problem is what most of us feel. But like going through your own life and the way you have handled things, uh, there were many challenges that were put across to you at various moments of your life. Very intense challenges. And yet you carry tremendous goodwill towards people, towards society, towards each and everyone around you. So how are you able to gather that, sir? Where does it come from?
No, see, Dr. Vinay, let me say, I don't know how it happened. In fact, I remember a small interview in All India Radio, Bangalore. Then the anchor asked me a question a couple of years back. What problems that you faced, that you overcame? What challenges you had that you overcame? a very natural way, I said, I had no challenges, I had no problems. Then she asked me, no problem, no challenges in life. Then I realized, oh, uh, problem, challenges has to be there in everybody's life, will be there. The point I am only trying to say is, look at is, how do you take that, the so-called problem or challenge? If you take that as a problem, it will remain as a problem. If you take it as a challenge, it will remain as a challenge. So with a very, very natural way, you start going ahead. We see recently, the mother of a good friend of mine, she died, maybe around 85, 86 years, something like that. They were living in a small village, and her husband was a school teacher. And when she died, in fact, a boy, a youngster who is now middle-aged, who was staying the next door, her neighbor, has written a post. Do you know what he has written? When they were all living, when this boy wanted to study and all that, that lady helped him to pursue his studies. But you imagine the kind of difficulties that she had. In fact, she was finding it difficult to educate her own children. But at that time, she made it to happen. She helped this boy. So she had a challenge. She had a problem. How she could overcome it, I don't know. Say, for example, I was listening to some literary figure also recently. That person is very fond of helping people who study in a particular language. A teacher, a normal teacher. Then somebody wrote a letter from somewhere, some small village, that I want 250 rupees to pursue my studies. Then immediately he called somebody and he took a loan of 100 rupees. He had only 200 rupees. He took a loan of 100 rupees, made it 300, and asked his friend to send to that boy. Then that friend asked him, it seems, do you know this boy? I don't know that boy. But that boy has only asked 250 rupees. Why you are sending 300 rupees? Then it seems the literary person, I don't remember his name. Then he said, hey, the fellow, 250 is only to meet his fees. But then he has to eat something, he has to put up some nice dress and all. So that's why I have added 50. So the question that you asked, the life is unfair. It all depends upon how you take it. It all depends upon how you take it. There is also fairness in unfairness. There may be unfairness in unfairness. There may be fairness in fairness. So therefore, that's what I feel.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. Because this is definitely a big question to many of us, like
Yes.
the way we perceive the life, how we respond to it comes from how we perceive it. So that perception is so important. Going further, the other area which I always feel inspired looking at you is you bring in tremendous amount of positivity and motivation along with you. I have seen you working as a teacher, the way you have motivated thousands of students I think they still, whenever they need a recharge, they will get back to you, spend some minutes with you, and then they go back. Then they're ready for next few months, days, or years. Or you are also part of the student activism movement where people look up to you for motivation. And you were also like, these two areas are fine where self motivation is possible, but you were also part of government systems where apparently things seem to be very slow in nature. The response is not up to the mark at times. So, despite all these circumstances, you worked magic while you were in the government. You made the departments own up the work that you were doing, or with the Knowledge Commission or NEP. Like the whole system actually took ownership in it. They were ready to accept what you were suggesting or what the committees were suggesting. How could you bring in this much of motivation? I mean, one for your own self and for others too. Because again, this is a challenge of the youngsters. How do I keep myself motivated? I know once I make up my mind, but how to stay with it for long durations?
I think, see, very, very important is your own conviction and genuineness. If you are asking me to put terminology to what I feel, because when we did all this, then people started responding. I never thought that people are responding. People are cooperating. Only when I reflect upon it, yes, it must have happened. And people like you, when you observe, then you get that feeling. But when people did not respond also, when people did not accept with us also, we took things in the same spirit. If you come with you, if you come, fine, no problem, kind of. No, that's very, very important. Especially if I am in a team, which I am very much aware and with whom I am accustomed to, I know people. But when I get into a foreign system and start working, like what you said, government, etc., etc. Vinay, let me tell you one thing. Finally, what matters to anybody, whether it's an extremely bad fellow, good fellow, whoever it is, what finally matters is whether you have that conviction and whether you have that genuineness. Let me give a small example that happened yesterday evening to me. Day before yesterday, when I slept, I got in my dream one of my colleagues with whom I worked. He is perceived to be the most baddest fellow. Bad means baddest, very wicked. And he started doing all kinds of wicked things against me also, all that. Yesterday morning, when I got up, I sent him a message that you had come in my dream and hope that everything is fine with you. Then I thought he did not respond. Maybe he must be feeling bad about me even today also. But yesterday evening he responds to me, saying that I felt extremely happy that you remembered me. Whatever good or bad has happened, sir, happened. I remember the days when we lived together, like that. See, the point I am only trying to say is, please see the goodness in somebody and you start working with a genuinity. Don't get into too much of backgrounds of people. Especially when I started working in the government, then the government system is always full of negatives. In the sense, if some minister you meet, people will start telling how much what all that he has done. If you meet a bureaucrat, then people will start telling what kind of scandal that bureaucrat was involved in. Then I always used to feel, and I used to tell my own colleagues in the commission, don't look into anybody's background. Please take them on face value and start working. Please don't have any prejudice, either positive or negative. If at all you want to collect positive things, but definitely not other things. That's what I.
And I would like to add, sir, this attitude of yours has worked magic, like that the way we saw in Karnataka Knowledge Commission. It was it was an outside body to the system. It did not have any executionary powers. Yet all the departments were actually they felt the sense of belonging and they were looking forward for the suggestions to implement. I think this was very key in that bringing about the transformation. Sir, I'll have one more last question and then we take up the questions of our friends. Uh, Again, a big issue that is there with especially the youth. Again, it's a common issue for everyone, but youth is how to handle success and failure. They're so used to successes, perhaps low-hanging fruits that they are able to receive at families because of one child or so nuclear families. So they just can't handle failure, and even a small failure can push them to the edge of life. How can one handle both the situation, and what would be your advice or your uh, guidance for people to handle with failure?
First of all, I don't have any advice. When you are asking me this question, I was just trying to reflect upon myself, whether I had any failures. And if that so-called failure is there, how did I handle? Let me give some two examples. See, when I was teaching in a college, possibly in 1986, there was a batch with whom I had very good rapport. But somehow I started feeling that they are not responding to the teaching or whatever it is. Then what I started doing is I started becoming negative, so-called negative. And I started scolding them left, right, center. And then one day when I went to the toilet, when all these things were happening, when I went to the toilet, there was students express their feeling in toilets. That used to be a common toilet. Down, MK Sridhar. Somebody had written. Then when I saw it, normally what happens, you become very angry. Huh? You start doing, who is that chap, what has happened, and things like that. But then I could make out, this must be done by a student of that class. Because I am now able to understand the sequence of events that were happening. And that made me to reflect on myself. I reflected on myself so much that I started realizing, why do I think that there is something wrong with others, with the students? Maybe I think the way I am teaching, the way I am approaching them, the way I am seeing them, there may be something wrong in me. And I started deliberately changing my perception, my approach and things like that. In the next couple of weeks and months, things became all right. and there was no problem.
Mm.
And another incident which I would like to say is, I used to guide a lot of PhD scholars. And initially, what happened? I wanted to be a very good guide and I want them to do this, that, and all that. That is always the case. So I started making a lot of expectation from them. They need to do this, they need to do only research every week, every hour. They need to publish this, all kinds of expectations. And most of the time, I used to be disappointed because they were not doing things up to that mark, what I felt. And sometimes I became angry and all that happened. But gradually, I started realizing the problem is not with them. The problem is with me. The problem is that I am having too much of expectation from them, which they are unable to fulfill. So then I started, let me not expect too much. Let them do in their own way. And now that improved my own perception about that. The point I am only trying to say is, young people at that age of their, energy and things like that, they want success and they cannot take failures. That is there. But it's also very, very important, that the way you take success, the way you take failure, both are extremely important. And it is your own maturity of your own life and your own reflection of your life make you to go about that. I think that's a very, very important.
Thank you very much for this insight to look upon failure as a mirror which offers you or as an occasion to reflect and find out where the gap is, and actually that helps you to grow. So with this, we will go on to a few questions from our friends. We don't have the name, but the question is this: how to handle the obligation that we need to earn a living for the family and end up doing something that may not vibrate with our consciousness? I think this is a question that many people hold because they feel they have been put into a situation which is not very comfortable, or a situation where they want to be in terms of work, but yet have to stay with it or live with it.
No, I think, friends, please don't feel bad about it. See, for everything there is a time. When the time comes, you can always do it. But please, as I told you, that incident of that literary figure who said, whatever work that you want to do, you do it as though that you have taken birth to do that only, kind of. Maybe at that point of time, you'll have to respond to the obligations of the family. And the expectations of the family, you have to do it. Fine, you do it.
In fact, sir, if you allow me, there's also second part of that question. I will read it out and then you could respond. Yeah. It continues, especially today's women are torn with the choice between family and career. Most of us live with guilt as we cannot have it all.
So many a time, especially that woman factor, I'll come back. But let me complete that point, what I'm trying to do, and then link it to that woman factor. See, you're unable to do something today, but you want to do something. In fact, recently I'm just involved in a project under ICSSR. wherein we are actually taking up some case studies of some 12, 13 people
Okay.
who are considered as common man.
Okay.
And from all that transcription and analysis, we could make out what is their goal of life. We could decode from all that what they said. But we did not ask any question like that.
Okay.
From their own life account, we decode. And in fact, in many of those case studies, I have not completed, but I'm in the process, we could make out this happens to be the goal of that person. But that goal could not be pursued. Over a period of time that could happen, and that happened. What does it mean? See, whatever that I want to do in my life, it may not be possible today. Fine, there are situations, there are circumstances, there are obligations. Unexpected things happen. Fine, happen. What to do? But at the same time, how do I take this? Say, for example, there is one incident in one of the case studies. That person says that I want to be away from home and all that. I want to spend more time for society, etc., etc. I want to, but I could not do it. But when I went to some other place and stayed in a hostel, away from home, I used that opportunity of staying in a hostel to do whatever I want to do. That person has said. How do you look at it? Coming to that woman, the same thing happens also. See, woman, in fact, the greatest salute that we will have to do to this woman folk. In spite of so many things, they bring in that warmth and love and affection and care and all that. But at the same time, doing things for my family, looking them after, that woman, or for that matter, anybody need not have to take as though we are unable to pursue what we want to do. Let us not do that. And let us also not interpret in that way. In fact, even in research terminology, we used to ask the demographic questions. What is your occupation? It used to be employee, student, like that. Previously, it used to be housewife. Previously, it used to be housewife. Housewife means only restricted to family, not doing anything. And there is also that focus on that wife part. Okay. But now the researchers have changed that phrases. They don't now use the term housewife, they use homemaker. Can there be a better role for anybody than being a homemaker? Please look at it from that.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have a question from Ms. Raksha Lohia, who says, thank you very much for explaining Karma Yoga. We all are evolving in this process. No calculations, you were mentioning about the calculations when you involve in work. No calculations is okay, but even desire for realizing the truth is the result what we expect. Is that not expectation, or should we give up that expectation also?
Yes. Beyond your point, yes. I have no expectations. If I have expectations, see, you are using a different terminologies, Papa. But it is more or less same, according to me. But it is very, very tough. See, I can say this. I can say this very easily in an interaction and go scot-free. But maybe possibly that I may also have expectation. Even if I say that I don't have expectation, but somebody may perceive that I have an expectation. See, it is not managing yourself, it is also managing your perceptions about you. So therefore, if it is nishkama karma, if it is nishkama karma, it is nishkama karma only, that's all. There cannot be anything in that place, but mind it, this cannot happen just like that. I can explain any number of words, or I can write any number of books on nishkama karma or karma yoga, but then bringing it in my life and doing it is extremely critical. And in that video that I showed, that Shabari, she's a very old woman belonging to a pariah kind of backward community and things like that. In her entire lifetime, she has been waiting for Rama to come, Bhagavan Sri Rama to come. And she wants to offer a fruit. She has been preparing for that years together. And when finally Rama comes, she cuts it with her mouth and then offers that. And that fruit seems to be not a good fruit, but Rama enjoys. That is Nishkam. I do it with complete devotion. That is what I call as work as worship.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to the next question again. I think something that is really an area where a lot more help is required at times. This question is from Sri Kalyan Dattaji, who is asking, sir, how to enhance the capacity to work and stay motivated as we get older and older in life? We might have all the energy and enthusiasm before, but how to hold on to it?
Now, I think a very, very important thing is, as I said, as and when we progress in life, we must always, this is what I felt in my life. Please don't do any work in a routine manner. Routine manner. I've been doing this, I will do this. Always please challenge the way you are working. This is the way I am working. How do I improve? How do I change? How do I bring some freshness? As long as you have a fresh mind thinking about that, you will enjoy doing whatever work that you do. But if I do it as a routine kind of a thing, you get tired, you get bored, and you feel that you don't have energy. Let me give a small example. See, in my own teaching career, couple of subjects, almost from beginning of my career to the end of my career, I handled. Maybe some exceptions. Then people ask me, sir, don't you get bored? The same subject you are teaching, you are handling, but you do it with a fresh mind. The same subject, it may not change. For example, mathematics. Mathematics may not change. The content may not change, but your own perspective, your own perception, your own picking up will definitely undergo change, a lot of things. And my own realizations, my own maturity, my own experiences of life will add a lot of value to that mathematics. That will make you happy. Second thing, with regard to aging and energy and that issue that came up, request is don't get into this. Rather, let me. I somehow feel the moment somebody feels that I am aging, that energy will be coming down. So please don't get into that. I am aging. I have so much to do. Let me continue to do. Suppose if I have some challenge not able to do it, fine, accept it. And accordingly change it. See, I used to move a lot at some point of time. I used to go to the third floor, fourth floor, etc. Somebody used to carry me. But then I started realizing that I should not do it. In a very, very graceful manner, I accepted it. I accepted what my body says. That is what you have to do. Gracefully you accept, and whatever is possible within that, let us focus more on what you can do rather than what you cannot do. I think that will give you happiness.
That's the secret, to be able to focus and give your best in the area that one can do and not be bothered or feel guilty or feel bad about what one cannot do. In fact, there is this prayer called Serenity Prayer, which goes like that: that give me the courage to bring in the change that I can bring in, and serenity to accept what I cannot.
And also to know the difference between the two.
True.
That is also there.
That's the last part of it. So, thank you very much for all these. We still have, I mean, some questions. You have already addressed them. Maybe I'll take up this question by Guru Makamji, who says, what is the best way to motivate all our organization members to read the Gita? Or if I have to expand, do you think, or what kind of an engagement with the text, especially like Gita, would be helpful to have this idea of, I mean, to bring in this attitudinal change with respect to work?
Friends, what I believe, I am only sharing what I felt. It may not be prescription to everybody, or it may not be an advice to everybody. See, let me tell you, if I strongly believe in something, I have no right to impose it on others. Yes, I strongly believe Gita has to be studied. Gita has to be practiced. Fine. I will do it. Whomsoever I can put across, I'll do it. But I cannot, rather, this is what I feel. Please don't mistake me. I should not impose on somebody else that you will have to read this and the moment you start doing it in a very unnatural way, then that issue happens. So you should always be very, very inclusive. Include them. Bring to your fold. Expand your circle of influence. That is a better way. Then you try to address it. You know, many people say even value education, you must make it compulsory in education. Well, suppose if you say, no, it should not be made compulsory, then people generally come to the conclusion, oh, you don't want value education? No, it is not the question of wanting or not wanting value education. It is a question of making it compulsory or not compulsory. So in that way, what I feel, the question that you ask, about Bhagavad Gita in an organization. Create an atmosphere, an ecosystem when people start realizing to do things on their own. I think that's very, very important. And that will be more sustainable. Otherwise, the organization, everybody will start reciting Gita. Because you are the boss, you have said. Once you become big and you are no more the boss, nobody will read it. That should not happen. That's all my point.
Thank you very much for that. There are many compliments that are coming and a lot of words of gratitude that our friends are sharing. I would just like to read a couple of them. Garima Khatri ji says, it was a very nice speech, insightful. My father was also in government job as deputy director of fisheries. So he lived life just like you in negative atmosphere, but abode of positivity to all. Now I am full of emotions as my father merged in Almighty in 2013. So I'd like to get in touch with you. So that's what Garima ji has written. And MK sir, thank you. You are an inspiration to all of us. This is from Guru Makam ji. And yeah, the list is long. So Shivalsa Kothia ji has joined and he says, excellent session. From my interactions and working with Professor MKS, I can see that he is naturally imbibing the teaching of Gita through his way of life and work in terms of devotion, selfless work, simplicity, friendliness, and openness. He was successful in creating the he is successful in creating the ecosystem wherever he goes. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. I mean, you just shared like the way you have looked into life, how you have responded, and how you were able to deal with certain situations. I think that was the most precious part of the session.
And there is nothing like right or wrong. This is what I looked at. Whatever is possible, you take it. Not needed, you leave it. That's all.
Thank you very much, sir. We still have two things from you. One is how can people contact you or follow your work? If they want to stay connected with you, how can they do it is one question. And also one message that you would like to share with all our friends this morning. In fact, you have shared generously, but to leave them with as a parting message. But I'll come back to you for these two after making the announcements for the evening session. Ram Prasad ji kindly shows the poster for the evening. This evening, again, an excellent session awaits us by one of the known scholars in the field of contemplative sciences. This is none other than Dr. B. Alan Wallace, who is a Buddhist scholar, teacher, author, and the president of Santa Barbara Institute for Consciousness Studies. In fact, he is one of the names who we look up to in the field of contemplative studies. If you look into his papers, if you really want to look into Buddhist psychology, Indian psychology, one of the persons who has published a lot and who makes a lot of sense is Dr. B. Alan Wallace. So he himself will be presenting before us on that topic, revitalizing India's ancient contemplative science of the mind. In fact, he says this is one of the greatest contributions of ancient India, which the whole world has to follow, that how you can understand the mind, especially through the well-developed processes of contemplation and reflections, which are very much part of the tradition. So they're actually setting up something called contemplative observatories, super specialized laboratories where people are trained in meditation techniques and they're also equipped with the understanding of science. So these are the kinds of new age laboratories that he is setting up, and they have just recently started work on one, and he will be sharing his experiences from this work and also pointing towards the insights that the Indian tradition has provided. So please stay with us for this evening and also continue this journey up to 31st July as we have a couple of more excellent speakers coming in. Tomorrow we'll be looking into the whole area of relationships. Today we saw about work, but tomorrow we'll be looking into the area of relationships again by a practitioner's perspective. So do stay with us. and make the most of what is available. And I also would like to add, all these sessions are being recorded and they're available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. So kindly refer to it, kindly share it with your friends who would be interested in it, and also to stay connected with Indica Yoga website to know about our future programs. So with these words, I now come back to Professor Sridhar. How can people follow your work or they can get connected with you?
No, I think you have already sent in your message to my mail ID. That is the most useful way of reaching out to me. I always reply and respond to the mails. If anybody wants anything beyond that, I'll also leave my phone number. 5. You add whatever numbers for Indian connection. 9845 222 573. 222 573. But my request is, whenever you want to talk, please give your reference and send me an SMS message so that will help me to call you back or whatever it is. Otherwise, I may be in some work or some things like that. I don't want to give a feeling to you that I am not responding. So this is what I feel, and I'm in Jayanagar, Bangalore. If anybody wants to visit also, we can always do that. You can always reach out to me. Maybe after this pandemic, possibly, etc. And so what I would like to say today, I requested you to play that video once again, and what I would like to say is, the spirit of the video is what is extremely important to whatever work that we do. So that work as worship comes from how you work and with what the way you work. That is very, very important. Thank you. I enjoyed. It made me to reflect on myself, and maybe on reflection, I don't know. I never wanted to be prescriptive to anything. Whatever you feel like, you please take it. Whatever you don't want, you please leave it. And don't do things that, don't feel that whatever I have done is right. This is what I have done. You may do it in a different way. Whatever you do is right. Whatever I do is also right. Right is not the universal answer. Wrong is also not the universal answer. It is always relative. Okay. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. I always remember the statement you were making, that when people have an experience for 20 years, it doesn't mean they have the experience of 20 years of working. It might just be 2 years of working multiplied by 10 times. So this is a statement that you used to always make. So I still remember, and I also would like to mention that with you, we have always seen that 20 years was much more than 20 years, because with every moment, every situation, you try to bring in new examples, new analogies. I mean, it's always fresh. Every presentation is unlike the other presentation. Every time you share, it's something new. So you're a symbol of positivity, newness, freshness, and a lot of motivation and general goodwill towards the society. So this is what inspires all of us who have seen you closely. And thank you very much for bringing all this in a short span of an hour or so. So we are grateful to you, sir. Thank you. And I also would like to thank all our participants who have joined us from across the world and who have been continuing this journey, sir. For last 40 years, 40 days, we used to have about 3 sessions a day. So many of them were following each of the 3 sessions, or now we have 2 sessions. So they have stayed with us, contributed a lot to the engagements, the question answers. That's what actually makes our sessions very interesting. The presentation part and the added part, the icing on the cake, is always the interaction. I'm just reminded of how whatever you share is connect so well the concepts that are presented in the Gita. While discussing Karma Yoga, Gita brings in 3 ideas. One is the attitudinal shift, change in one's attitude to a selfless nature. The second one, absence of expectations. And third one, Loka Sangraha, doing things with tremendous goodwill towards the society or for the larger cause. I think without referring to any of these, without referring to the text, you just brought it out in a very natural manner from your own experiences. And that's what connects with the Gita too. So thank you very much, sir, for these insights. And I also thank all our participants. Namaste, Shubhadinam.